era of sort of AI messiness has ended. You prompt and then you're getting this mix of outputs and you get a flat JPEG, right? Starting point isn't a blank page anymore. It's a polished, brand compliant first draft. Hey everyone, welcome to AI for Creators. It's something we're trying to do every week, and I'm here at ClickToView, trying to give you the latest info on kind of what's happening with AI and how you might be able to use it. So let's talk about the visual operating system and kind of what's really happened towards the end of April that really made things a lot more capable in terms of visual design and workflow plans. Today I want to talk about something that's actually shifted in the last 3 weeks. It's not hype. It's really a change in how AI can show up in our day-to-day and help us get things done. The era of sort of AI messiness has ended, right? For the most part. Look at this side by side. On the left side is what most of us are doing for the last 2 years. You prompt and then you're getting this mix of outputs and you get a flat JPEG, right? You couldn't really edit the layers. You export it, you drag it to another tool, you use it as just a reference. Manual handoffs every step. On the right is where we are now. The starting point isn't a blank page anymore. It's a polished, brand compliant first draft. First draft being key there. The output, it doesn't have to be a flattened image now. It can have editable layers, vector paths, and code that we can all work with. And the process isn't isolated too, right? So the systems now are aware of the workflows where one tool reads what the next tool needs to kind of keep going on the flow. The thing I want to flag is this isn't a marketing claim, right? This is actually what shipped out between 16th of April and 28th April. 5 products in 12 days. We'll go through them. AI is no longer just a writing assistant, right? We've gradually been seeing this where it's getting better and better. And I think this is really where we're starting to see it. Even myself, I'm really starting to take it seriously. Okay, how can I build these agentic workflows? And I was just really excited about ChatGPT Image 2, playing around with it for hours because all the amazing things I could do with the thinking mode on. ChatGPT Images 2.0 uses extended compute to map spatial reasoning. And I've really been blown away by this in terms of how it will take a concept I'm working on and understand what I'm trying to do with it visually, spatially. Don't get me wrong, I still get a lot of outputs where it's not where I want, but I feel like there are some amazing outputs and I can work with it to get better. Whereas before, sometimes I just give up and get frustrated and it's giving me the outputs very slow. Whereas now I can get 8 to 10 outputs at once that are all connected, they're all coherent, they're all much closer to what I was actually looking for. So first things is there's the thinking mode, right? You need to be using the thinking mode in ChatGPT Images to do this. And basically the model plans everything out and checks the spelling, maps the grid. It verifies the brand context. This might sound boring or generic, but it's the difference between a mood board and a finished asset. The typography is really great. It can actually work with Hindi, Bengali, Korean, Japanese, Chinese, character level accuracy. For us in the APAC area, that's a real unlock. Basically, we spent a lot of hours, maybe having messed up Mandarin text that was AI generated, or just even in English, right? You'll get these outputs where you've got little tweaks with the text. So ChatGPT is really helping clean that up. Third, sequential coherence across 8 panels. I think it can actually go up to 10, and you might even want to stay only to 6 if you really want better coherence. But I've been playing around with that. You can hold up a character in an environment, a wardrobe across 8-frame sequence, their face. And what we've seen Claude Design sort of crystallizes this strategy into functional prototypes. So Anthropic shipped Claude Design on 17th of April, the day after Opus 4.7 dropped, which I use Opus 4.7 a lot, even though it eats up a lot of credits. The headline is that the output isn't an image, it's a working HTML, CSS, and React components. You give it a messy text brief and it gives you something a developer can pick up or your team can edit or work with and find them. Canva, we'll get into that as well. So this is generally useful for agency work, for modification, system-aware logic. You can point it at an existing code base or a Figma file, and it extracts the design system. Colors, typography, scale, spacing tokens, and then it enforces across everything it generates. So when you're prototyping for a client, like let's say Workday, Visa, you're not making something that's only pretty, you're making something on brand, on system that will potentially survive the handoff, that we're going to give to the design team to work with and modify. Canva and Adobe have dismantled the uneditable flat image. Two more pieces of the puzzle, right? So Canva AI 2.0, the thing they fixed is the flat image problem. When you generate something now, every element is a layer you could move, you can edit, you can swap. There's a memory library that holds your brand kit, so every button, every font, every scale, every hex code stays compliant when you scale a campaign across formats. And what I saw too is that, you can actually work Claude with Canva. So I think this idea, again, this workflow, these layers, which you can get things done. Also, we saw Adobe's Firefly assistant. This is the agentic piece, natural language across Photoshop, Premiere, Illustrator, Frame.io. You can say track stakeholder feedback in Frame, apply the color grade across the entire timeline, export 16:9 versus 9:16 versions, and it does the multi-step work without you switching apps. So Google Workspace now is also providing a secure sanctuary for enterprise data. This one matters more than people think, especially if you work with regulated clients. So NotebookLM is your grounded research. You upload client PDFs, their brand book, their decks, their model only answers from those sources. No web pollution, no hallucinations, no bleeding from the training data. So you can do something with Google Vids, Lyria 3, which I think are a bit behind now, but I think hopefully in a few days when we see Google I/O, we'll see some improvements here. So every personal Google account gets 10 free video generations a month. Workspace Ultra accounts can get up to 1,000. Lyria 3 generations, custom soundtrack for 30 seconds to 3 minutes. This is all sitting inside Workplace. So when you generate a video about an unreleased product, it's not training on a model. So architectural confidentiality, VPC, service control, zero training on customer data. This is the piece I'd actually flag anyone who's working with banks, telcos, or government clients in the region. The risk isn't the technology. The risk isn't the technology. The risk is shadow IT. Your team pasting QBR data in the free consumer tool Workspace gives you that sanctioned sandbox, right? The solo creator has evolved into basically a little high output, little mini micro studio. So this is a structural shift for the creator economy. A solo operator with $200 to $400 USD monthly, right, can have a pretty heavy stack of VO, Lyria, ChatGPT, Claude. So now that micro influencer for say $400, $500 a month can really start to output a lot of material and fast. The financial barrier to hand execution has basically collapsed a lot. I mean, of course, though, quality hasn't collapsed, and working with the right people hasn't collapsed. You still need to have those people who want to work with you. What this means in practice, though, single layer podcast recording become Lyria scored highlight clips, a Canva carousel for LinkedIn, an illustrated newsletter, VO B-roll cut down, all auto-generated, all from the same source in minutes. But the big thing here is that all of this centers around taste, your knowledge of what's going to be compelling, how well you know the culture, what resonates and rings true for you and for your team. So the tools handle operations, video, audio, design, but you, the human, still needs to decide what's making it worth it. What's what's the next step, right? Visual pitching. This can compress client alignment from weeks to hours potentially. I actually did this recently. I was using Google Gemini, or actually Google Flow. We needed a deck out quick. We needed some ideas. I jumped into Google Flow. I started to put some images together of the people we were going to film, created them on the background. And actually it looked about, and I even put in some different font types in there. And actually it looked about, 80% as to the final look that we actually went with when we actually filmed it. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of inconsistencies in the deck, but it looked fine for like a pitch to say, hey, this is what it's going to look like. It was 90% there. The client was happy with it. They needed something right away. I did it with Google Flow, and then I jumped into ChatGPT Images to actually make me the deck. So that was a new thing. I would never go to ChatGPT to make me decks previously, but I was able to do that now with the new ChatGPT image model. So an old pitch flow, like text heavy, strategy doc, brand positioning paragraphs, a couple of mood boards, 2 weeks of internal back and forth before anything visual hits the client. New pitch flow could be 4 steps. NotebookLM ingests the kickoff transcript and brand book. Claude Design generates functional UI prototypes and slide layouts. ChatGPT then gets the images, produces 8 style frames in 3 creative territories. It's really good at this different style stuff. And then Runway or Google VO adds cinematic motion to the keyframes. Then you walk into the meeting with 3 clickable animated options. If they could be interested in. So the compression is real. What used to take a team weeks, now it takes one strong account director 2 days. Creative, plug into creative, whatever. And the win rate goes up because you're not selling an idea, you're showing the client what it actually looks like. Now, will it become the final in the near future? I think in some cases, yes. In other cases, no. And I think in each, it's a bit too specific. And in each case, it'll be different. But for agencies that bill on retainers and outcomes, this is good news. For agencies that bill in hours, less so. Answer engine optimization replaces traditional search visibility. Quick detail into something every B2B marketer needs to track. The audience behavior shift. People aren't searching anymore. They're asking Perplexity, Gemini overviews, ChatGPT, search their traditional 10 blue links pages collapsing. What that means for visibility, ranking on page one isn't the goal anymore. The goal is being cited by Perplexity, being pulled into Gemini overview, being the source the large language model extracts from when someone asks the question your client wants to own. The mechanic is different. You need clear data, structured formatting, expert quotes, citable claims. You're not optimizing for a crawler anymore. You're optimizing for a parser. And if a large language model can't extract, basically you're invisible. Democratized perfection creates a sea of algorithmic mediocrity. So if the large language models are all, going for this calculated mean, how do you actually create something that stands out and is different from just the sort of smart average the machines can put out? The bit of the dark side of all of this is when everyone has the same tools, everyone gets the same look, potentially, right? So the University of Florida even published a study in March, basically quantified what we all suspected. A flood of mid-quality AI content actively harms both consumers and professional creators. So the recommendation systems get congested. The good stuff gets buried under the slop. The way I think about it, when anyone can produce a 4K cinematic video in minutes, looking professional stops being a competitive advantage. Polish is now the floor, not the ceiling. And if your differentiation strategy was production value, you've just been commoditized. If polish is free, what's scarce? So that's taste. Who you are as a person, editorial judgment, your lived human experience, cultural nuance, the willingness to leave something a little messy, because if that messy is what resonates more truly or stops the scroll. So AI can't synthesize like authentic community trust. It cannot manufacture the parasocial relationship creator builds over 5 years. It cannot replicate what it feels like to actually have a lived through the thing you're describing, right? So what do you bring as a person? What is the lived experience you're bringing to your material? And how does that come across as fresh and unique? So we're trading the heavy lifting of raw production for the heavier responsibility of curation, right? Originality and editorial friction, the stuff that doesn't optimize for the mathematical average. That's only the differentiator left. I mean, that's a bit hiked up, but the models themselves still have more work to do to get to that, like, let's say, high quality level of like cinematic beauty. If I go shoot on a high end camera, I have really good acting. But the idea here is that it's getting closer, and we can use this tool, but we still need to, what are we still bringing as authentic individuals? Here's the important things, if you can take this away. 1, prototype everything, right? Stop sending stop sending heavy text documents, right? If you can generate interactive mockups or a 30-second animatic in 2 hours, do that. Visuals beat text every time. Every pitch I've run in the last few months has led to clickable prototype. The client engagement curve is night and day. Okay, I haven't had a clickable prototype on every pitch. But whatever. So the dream here would be to have a clickable prototype for the client. Every time we send out pitches, if we can get that done just as fast as what would have taken us to write two or three pages on the idea. 2, build secure sandboxes. So basically, purely AI generated work cannot be copyrighted. which means you need documented human creative control on every deliverable, and you need an enterprise, environment for client safety, right? Which would be Workspace, you can Google NotebookLM, whatever, where client IP is sandboxed and safe. So basically, we need to have those secure, sandboxes, that aren't getting leaked out, that aren't being trained on, that we can bring in all our pitch or read stuff from the client, and then basically prototype on it and try to understand it better. Okay, so point number 3: cultivate foundational craft, or artistic expression. Don't let don't imagine that juniors can just become AI assemblers. If they only know how to bolt together generated components, they'll never develop the eye to know why something works emotionally, right? You still need to think about pacing, composition, color theory, rhythm, basically all these fundamentals, whatever your field is. What is that heart, and what is that's driving these things that you're creating? So the future belongs less to people who can prompt and more to people who direct. Okay, so the future isn't so much about like prompting, right? It's more about directing, orchestration. And I guess I like to think of it this way: is that, yeah, I'm working on complex AI systems, but I want to keep working on those AI systems until they get simple, right? I want to have my feedback in there, or our feedback in there, and I want it to be easier to get to something that we find really amazing or beautiful or impactful, but with our feedback in there, right? So whatever systems you build should always have that capability in there. I'm thinking things like Claude Cowork, right? What can we do to build in, I've been trying to work on like the AI as a second brain, this idea where I can pull from my database and my knowledge and build upon it in a clean and coherent way, and progress on it every day and stay on track. If you found this useful, please share it with one person who needs to hear it. Links to all the tools and sources, research are linked in the show notes. And thanks again. This is Erik from Click to View. You can also check us out on Creator Weekly newsletter. We're on Substack and on YouTube. Thanks so much, you guys.